distinguished guests, members of the faculty, and my dear friends. Welcome to the second day of Conventus 2020, the annual management conclave of International Management Institute, New Delhi. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought the world to a screeching halt. Institutions, corporations, and governments alike are getting accustomed to this new normal. Conventus is a legacy that we at IMI New Delhi are determined to continue, come what may. And in that very spirit, we are proud to announce that for the first time, Conventus 20 is being held online. My fellow compare, Utsav, and I, Diksha, shall take you through the HR Summit of Conventus 20. This year, Conventus is structured around the theme Survival and Growth in the VUCA World, Adaptability, Agility, and Sustainability.
The acronym VUCA, which stands for Volatility, Uncertainty, Complexity, and Ambiguity, has gained massive popularity in the business world over the past few decades. The VUCA world demands leaders to come up with realistic and applicable solutions. Firstly, by tracking volatility with a visionary approach and by not allowing small roadblocks to come in the way of overarching vision. Further, businesses need to gauge uncertainty by bridging the gap between the causes and their effects. Firms can counter complexity by breaking down the loops of reaction and promoting proactivity towards solving problems. To conquer ambiguity, continuous learning and swiftness in decision making is key.
For years, we have seen industries change entire business plans overnight to match the current market trends. The 2002 market crash had disastrous effects on various industries. Similarly, the 2008 financial crisis had detrimental socio-economic effects on the world. A common factor in both situations is how unprepared it left everyone. As it is rightly said, the best way to come out of a crisis is on top, and the one way to do that is by staying constantly vigilant. As future leaders, understanding how to tackle these four elements will give us the opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. Survival in a VUCA world is a need of the hour, and growth is the true way forward. Before we proceed further, we would like to play the Conventus 20 theme video.
Business often takes inspiration from the art of war strategies. Gone are the days when a single textbook solution could work all molds. Challenges have become multifaceted. As experienced by the US Army during the Cold War, VUCA, an acronym describing how less they knew or could think regarding situations. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrown the world into disarray. Everything has become increasingly unstable. The concept of clarity is muddled. Predicting the future is nearly impossible. Interconnectivity is more chaotic than ever. So, how do you plan on coping with the new normal?
To share with us their valuable insights, we are honored to have amongst us 6 senior corporate executives: Ms. Kornika Ganguly, Mr. Sandeep Batra, Ms. Kamakshi Gupta, Mr. Alok Gupta, Ms. Megha Gupta, and Mr. Yuvraj Srivastav. Before we begin this session, we would like to give a brief introduction of our esteemed panelists. We are delighted to introduce to you all our first panelist, Ms. Kornika Ganguly, Director and Head of Talent Management at Cipla. Ms. Ganguly is an HR leader who has been the go-to person for the organization for key people challenges. With the simple philosophy of less is more, she has been an enabler and driver of business solutions and levers over the last decade. With her experience spanning the pharmaceutical, banking, and consulting sectors, the key motivator of her is the impact that the right HR decisions can create in an organization. She is an esteemed alumna of XLRI Jamshedpur. Ma'am, we are delighted to have you here with us today.
It is a privilege to introduce our next panelist, Mr. Sandeep Batra. Mr. Batra is the Group President HR and CHRO for Landmark Group, which is one of the major retail giants and operates multiple concepts and brands. Before Landmark, Mr. Batra spent 13 years at Vodafone, where he was designated as the head HR for technology and B2B, and also as the Chief Talent Officer. He led the people integration in the merger between Vodafone and Idea. He has prior experience of working across diverse sectors, namely IT, ITES, and automotive manufacturing. He commenced his career in the Indian Army and left the Defence Forces post the Kargil War. He is known for leading initiatives on people development and large-scale transformations. Mr. Batra is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta. Sir, we are delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much. Privileged to be here.
Our next panelist for the session is Ms. Kamakshi Gupta, Director, Head of Learning and Development, Talent Management and Branding, and Internal Communications at Swiggy. Ms. Gupta, a fellow alumnus of IMI New Delhi, is currently working towards shaping the people practices for a hyper-competitive new age organization like Swiggy. Swiggy is one of the largest and the most valuable online food delivery platforms in India, founded in 2014, with operations in more than 100 cities across India. Ms. Gupta has over 10 years of work experience, where she has worked with global organizations like Accenture and has also worked with clients across industries as the head of organization effectiveness for general industries at Aon. Ma'am, we are happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm equally happy to come back.
It is a privilege to introduce our next panelist, Mr. Alok Gupta. Mr. Gupta is the Vice President, Consulting Services with Right Management, having over 24 years of rich working experience with the top multinational companies such as Ranbaxy, VAM Organics, and Hero Group. He is passionate about making a positive impact on the client's business and people through initiatives such as strategic workforce alignment and organizational effectiveness. He has advised clients on aligning their employees and teams with the organization's objectives and strategies to enhance overall business performance in the past 15 years. He brings versatility to the table, having led business roles such as product and brand management and sales in different industries, and has strong HR consulting experience. Sir, we are delighted to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you.
Last but not the least, we are honored to introduce Ms. Megha Gupta, Human Resource Director at Fiserv. Ms. Gupta is actively leading the transformational journey in banking and financial technology industry at Fiserv India. Fiserv Incorporation, a Fortune Top 65 company, is a leading global technology provider serving the financial services industry, driving innovation in payments, processing services, risk and compliance, etc. Not only has she led the HR function in reputed firms like Public Sapiens, HCL Infosystems, Tata Teleservices over the past 15 years, but has also partnered with business leaders on capability building to meet future technology requirements. Ms. Gupta has recently been recognized as Are You in the List in 2016, a highly prestigious award by People Matters. Ma'am, we are happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And it's really my pleasure to be here and interact with each one of you.
It is an honor to introduce our moderator for the summit, Mr. Yuvraj Srivastav. Mr. Srivastav is the Group CHRO with Make My Trip Group that includes the three most powerful travel tech brands of India, namely Make My Trip, GoIbibo, and Redbus. He is a graduate in Industrial Psychology from Allahabad University and MBA in HR from IMT Ghaziabad. After having worked with the Indian Armed Forces for 6 years, Mr. Srivastav transitioned into the corporate world where he has had long and successful stints with Asian Paints, the Oberoi Group of Hotels, PepsiCo, and Make My Trip. He is an active member of various forums like the Central Board of Film Certification, HR Committee of FICCI, and many educational institutions. Over the years, he has performed roles across various domains ranging from industrial relations to organizational effectiveness and is recognized as one of the 100 most influential and talented HR leaders in India. Sir, it is an honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
In light of the main theme of Conventus 20, we wish to discuss the revolutionary HR strategies in the VUCA embedded environment to meet the demands of the competitive business world. Human resource is an integral part of any organization responsible for employee well-being. It addresses all people-related problems to ensure that the employees remain satisfied and motivated. With the onset of the pandemic and the uncertainty of its exit, the way the employees remember this experience is now in the hands of the leadership and the HR strategists. This year, the topic of discussion for the HR Summit is redefining HR in the VUCA environment.
VUCA, the term that describes the age we are in today, has caught popularity in the past decade or so. However, the scope of the term goes beyond the simple acronym. It is a body of knowledge that deals with learning models for preparedness, anticipation, evolution, and intervention. But how shall HR managers and leaders adapt to these unclear and uncertain circumstances is an unanswered question.
The HR professionals are facing the VUCA challenge in terms of strategic employment. Talking about volatility, many people see the change as the only constant, and HR professionals find themselves constantly restructuring the organization hierarchy as their organization endeavor to respond. Next, uncertainty. An increase in uncertainty makes it much harder to figure out what's happening today. Trying to understand what organization form and capabilities might be important in future.
Coming on to the complexity, the technological ease of connecting with people far and wide has created more interdependencies and feedback loops than ever before. The risk for those designing organizations' workforce is change one thing and you might end up changing everything due to the intricate networking. Then comes ambiguity. Where no precedents exist, it becomes even harder to reach clarity and agreement about the meaning and significance of events. Therefore, in a highly ambiguous environment, it can be difficult to reach decisions about organization design strategies.
With the changing expectations of the younger generation and the advancement of technology, recruiting and retraining the employees have become even more challenging. Traditional HR processes, which included long planning phases and project plans drawn up over several years, no longer do justice in the present scenario. The HR managers have to be on their toes to meet the demands of this competitive world and to stand tall during these sudden unforeseen changes.
Today, HR professionals are expected to play a more inclusive role in business strategies to counter the challenges of the present times. First, HR professionals need to have a deep understanding of business to recruit a more technically competent person for the role. Second, HR nowadays are also seen as business partners, as they help drive the employees to produce desired business outcomes and results.
Third, leverage technology and innovation will help in faster decision making and focus on delivering the desired results much faster than before. Fourth, HR has to identify and promote the right talent through continuous learning and upgradation of skill sets for critical projects and assignments. Last, HR plays the role of a change agent who manages the expectations of the people while driving the change agenda.
The HR community today has far more to deliver than probably what it had to do a decade back. An HR manager is perceived as a more responsible and effective business partner who is no longer restricted to talent acquisition but is becoming a key stakeholder as far as the organization's strategy is concerned. May we now request Mr. Yuvraj Srivastava, our esteemed moderator for the session, to please take over.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Utsav and Deeksha. Very well brought out. Great to be here. Great to see young faces early in the morning on the screen. It would have been great to really meet up with all of you in the auditorium of IMI. I've been there a few years back in the similar event, and it was nice to really interact with many of you. but I'm sure that this all is also equally exciting. At least you meet people. And thanks a lot for inviting me. And again, welcome to my fellow panelists. Some of them I have met, some of them I still, want to meet. Sandeep is definitely an ex-army officer, a fellow officer, passed out from the same academy a couple of years later than me. Megha, I've met many a times on panels. Great to catch up with Konika, Kamakshi, and Alok to really look forward and meet up with these guys at some point of time. But I'm in a fix, You guys have covered everything. And the same is the feeling with my, fellow panelists. They're saying, yaar, ye hame karna kya hai? I think Diksha and Utsav have been extremely, extremely sharp in terms of bringing out what VUCA is all about. I think that I kept on shifting my, notes underneath as your slides went ahead. So great job done, Diksha, Utsav, and everyone. That shows, clearly the overall class and the preparedness and the overall, perfection of the institute and the teachers and the students. So that's a big thumbs up to all of you, IMI fraternity and IMI students. Keep it up. I think this is a good one. You guys spoke about US Army, and that's where the term VUCA came in. Understanding VUCA in a very simple way is there is a matrix of X and Y. On one matrix, you have clearly that how much do you know what is going to happen? And on the other axis is how much are you sure about the impact of the actions you are taking? If you create these two axes and make a 2x2 matrix and you plot volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, you'll get to know that, the whole definition of VUCA. Much has been spoken about VUCA in the last 5-6 years. Many conferences have happened. You just Google VUCA, you'll get, barrage of document right from HBR to the normal magazines and the newspapers talking about VUCA. So what I'll expect and what I will request is that instead of really we talking to you guys and giving you very classic definitions, it will be interesting for you guys to really listen at the end and have your questions to the panel, whatever comes to your mind. So we'll spare some time for the question and answer, whatever it is there right now. We may spend another 5 minutes in answering questions. So while you're listening to us, 129 people here on the screen, keep thinking of questions, what comes to your mind. I'm sure that moderators will pick up right questions, which will basically give a trend of overall emotions and put it up to us. So that's how we will go ahead. I started my career with armed forces. I did my graduation in psychology, came to armed forces at a very, very young age, around 2021, got commissioned at the age of 21, and worked for 6 years in armed forces, then came to corporate world for last 23 years, 24 years. I think life has been completely VUCA. When I left army, I didn't know why am I leaving, and Sandeep will bear with me. People used to say that, if there's a class 1 central government gazetted officer, what is he going to go do in the corporate world? It's a job which has huge amount of recognition. So huge amount of uncertainty, what was there, that how will you really move to the corporate world and what will you be able to do it, right? Worked in various industries, and I'm sure fellow colleagues have also done that, right from hospitality to, FMCG, and now in tech and product world. In the corporate world, every couple of years, you see this, one of the elements of VUCA playing out. Beauty of the whole concept is while all the 4 words are there together, 4 alphabets are together in the acronym, but all of them play out very separately. So VUCA is not a complete concept as an acronym which comes at once. VUCA, different elements of VUCA can really impact the organization and individuals very, very differently at different phases of life or different phases of career. It is not only relevant for the organizations, it is also relevant for the individuals. We all as human beings also go through huge amount of VUCA. And if you need to really understand the real meaning of VUCA, it's very important for you to really start mapping your journey from the class 10 to 12th, and after 12th getting into whatever you did, graduation in terms of engineering and all, or normal humanities, and after that again taking a decision whether it's an IMI or any other institute. It all, you'll map yourself and you'll realize that you have gone through this process. And clearly the decisions what you have made and clearly the outcomes of the actions what you have taken is something what normally also decide and discuss in the corporate world. We are at 10 o'clock. We have till 11 o'clock, 1 hour we have 6 of the panel members. The process we'll follow is that I'll pose a question to everyone. Panel members will respond to it. And once the answer finishes, I'll request panel members to feel free to really come in at whatever point of time if you feel you have a relevant point to add to the previous panelist. End of it, closing remarks and a question and answer. So that's how we'll go out. Is that fine? Konika, Kamakshi, Megha?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So Sandeep. Sandeep, are you there?
Yeah.
Hi, Sandeep. How are you?
Good.
So we have seen a lot of VUCA, right? And
Yeah.
you also fought in Kargil. So I'm sure that nobody can be better than you to talk about VUCA. But let me bring you to your current role, Sandeep. You know, I think retail industry in India has always been marred with something or the other which has really signified one of the elements of VUCA. Large workforce, regulatory environment, cost pressures, overall scale, competition, online and offline. I think huge amount of VUCA elements playing out in the industry as such. It's real complex word, if I have to say. And when you say complex, there are many variables on play, and you don't know how one is going to impact the overall outcome of decision. Talk about your experience and how you basically worked through this and maybe help the organization in terms of coming up the curve and managing some of the crises and what it would have. Sandeep?
Sure, Yuvraj. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here. And Yuvraj, thank you for asking me this question. What I'm going to talk about is not only from a VUCA perspective of retail industry. I'm pretty new. It's been just 5 months since I moved into this role. But also seen a big transformation in my erstwhile organization. I was the integration officer managing the merger between Vodafone and Idea for 2 long years. And hence, last 4 years have been very, very VUCA in my life. So I have captured some experiences from the last 4 years of how I have experienced this world. And I am going to talk about those examples to you. I'm not going to talk about, whether we did a right hiring or a right talent management. I think all organizations have their own survival systems and they're very used to that. But I'm going to talk about all the software elements, which I think is important from my experience. And I think it's equally relevant to all the industries. So first thing what I'm going to talk about is, in my mind, a journey from a really complicated thinking to embracing a complexity consciousness. And what does it mean is that when crisis really comes in, it really overbears on us and we start thinking very complicated things that, there's no simple answer to these problems. And we try to sometimes over-engineer the whole situation itself. And unfortunately, in those circumstances, we do not have any best practices because these kind of situations we have never ever experienced before. And hence, we can never predict, crisis which is coming in our lives. Hence, it is very, very crucial for us as HR leaders to tap into the organization's collective intelligence, which I think has been a big learning for me. And really make sure when we tap into this collective intelligence, we allow the solutions to really emerge. And what it really asks out of the HR team in that perspective is really the need to collaborate with employees at every level. It's not only that you'll collaborate with people at the senior management, but it's also about frontline. They equally understand the business from their perspective as well. And hence, what is the ask from us is really about making sure that our interpersonal relationship in those times, rather than control, standards and hierarchy really takes the precedence. That's very, very important. How do we really make sure reaching out to people, having a connect and getting those emerging solutions coming out to people, it becomes very, very important. And hence brainstorming, whether it is in the current context about, future of work, whether you want to work from home, whether it is hybrid, or you want to go back to before times, or really about continued engagement. I think it's all about brainstorming and reaching out to people. And I think it's become a mantra that if we do not do enough of that, we do not embrace collective intelligence, which comes from collaboration and efforts and engagement with diverse team, I think success really doesn't come through. And that's what my experience of the last two transformation tells me. So that's one. Second is about, how as HR folks, we make values as foundational in the crisis. Whenever crisis happens, the fear and panic gives rise to all of us to do knee-jerk reactions during crisis. And we've seen so many examples in the past 6 months. Companies whose operating models or core has been so different, they have started selling sanitizers and masks, just to make sure, this is a quick time to make that. But they've just forgotten what their basic core values are. I mean, what made them successful in these business lines. And hence, a lot of progressive organizations also slide back to traditional thinking and start making autocratic decisions without regard to impact on business, impact to employees, and impact on the higher term thinking. And I think this is where the HR needs to really step in. And what I'm really, my experience talks about is the fairness in the whole ecosystem. The passion for people really has to emerge very, very strong in the crisis for us. And what I'm talking about is really returning to the basic core values of the organization, which really becomes a filter for decision making, whether I should take this step or not take a step, whether it really connects to my core, connects to my values, or really I'm trying to have a knee-jerk reaction in this regard and trying to do something which really is not good in terms of long term for me. It may give me a benefit in the very, very immediate term, but really, is this my core? Is this really my center of what I'm trying to do here? I think it's very important to do that, and hence these values really help us to pressure test so many times what is really is really, you come to realize that is value something which is hung on the wall, or really value is something which we want to practice really intensely. And this approach really means that when you follow and filter everything from the value system, it really makes approach very, very less stressful. Gives us more time, and really better results really come in front of us. And really then in this context, our job as HR leaders is to make sure that the moral conscience of the organization and enabling self and enabling leaders to bring values to the fore and have passion for people really scores very, very high. That's my second take on this. And my third take is really about a thing called the 3 steps theory. In every crisis, and I think that's again where HR leaders become a very big enabler for whatever we're doing. Is think about what we should stop doing, what should we change, and what should we keep. And a lot of times, HR leaders make mistakes, grave mistakes into this. And what should we stop doing in this thing is, my experience is a lot of procrastination. A lot of poor coordination, because we think that, and a natural thing for all companies to do is, crisis happens, stop cutting costs, you start cutting costs, and stop the fills. And in this whole thing, we sometimes see that what we should really keep doing in terms of building capability of people or engaging people, we start cutting costs there. I think that's the big mistake we guys do, in terms of what we stop doing. So every time when you are in crisis, ask the 3 questions. Importantly, what should we keep, what should we change, and what should we stop doing? And really, I think this is a time, a crisis is really the time when you have to actually build up. But talent really makes a difference in this entire crisis marketplace. You have to make sure that you are investing in the capability to make sure organization is future ready. You are retaining your key talent more and more, and really not really into the game of cutting costs. You cut costs where you need to reorg, you need to outsource some activities, you want to make sure your operating model changes. That's something we must do, which is partnering the business to the right areas. But don't really cut corners where you think you must be more investing. So These are my experiences, my 3 top experiences of my last 4 or 5 years that I've gone through the immense VUCA world. I hope it makes sense to everyone.
Very, very valuable, Sandeep. I think great points made in terms of decision-making process while you are facing any of the situations pertaining to VUCA, whether it's a collective intelligence, using brainstorming, and also very relevant point made in terms of remaining core to the values of the organization and not unnecessarily getting drifted towards something which is a short term in terms of getting you value, but basically impacts your overall moral fiber of the organization in a deeper way, which can really have a deeper dent long term. So great point made. Sandeep will come back to that. Now, let me come to Kamakshi. Kamakshi, I think that Kamakshi brings in a friend's experience of the consulting world, and now with Swiggy, one of the most often spoken and used portal or an app, food delivery app, and I'm sure many of you would be using it. I have many of my friends in Swiggy. Swiggy also has some of the, we also have a common investor, what it was till some time back.
Yeah.
Kamakshi, I wanted to understand from you, you came from a consulting world wherein discussions would be more in terms of very structured thinking on bringing solutions, right? When you come to an organization like Swiggy, which is to a great extent duopoly in India, it has very, very vibrant workforce. It has a very different market dynamics.
Yeah.
How what are those elements which you feel had really been challenged of a common wisdom when it comes to HR practices, when you work with organizations which are young, startup, and also trying to do things very differently, want to scale up fast, want to grow faster? How do you see the difference, and what has been your experience in Swiggy in relation to your earlier experience? So your opening comments, and maybe if you can talk a bit about this.
Sure, Yuvraj. I think, what sums up my experience of having worked with, say, Accenture when I started off, and even before that with IDBI, moving on to Aeon, and now moving on to Swiggy is, organizations like IDBI, Accenture used to talk about 5-year plans. A consulting organization typically talks about that 1-year plan, that revenue target that you need to hit. And, when you join an organization like Swiggy, you don't talk beyond a quarter. And that for me really sums up, the amount of ambiguity, the amount of hustle, the amount of structured thinking that you can really apply across these organizations. And, if I have to double click specifically on Swiggy, right, I think any e-commerce startup for that matter is VUCA personified. If I look at Swiggy, it is a business which is into hyperlocal. Add to that the fact that it is real time. Add to that the fact that it's a 3-way marketplace, which is where your consumers, your delivery partners, your restaurants come together. It's highly competitive, and we really respect our competitor. Think about 2014. I think Utsav spoke about the fact that, Swiggy came into being in 2014. Who would have thought that, our population base in India would be okay to order food online, pay a delivery fee to order it. So, for any such organization, you really need to create that need. It is really about a huge shift that the organization has been able to create in consumer behavior. Add to that the fact that any startup is always grappling with these 2 balls of growth versus profitability, right? And when you do that, there is always a part of the business which is more run the business, and a part of the business which has to be build the business. Now, there are organizations which can, decide to sort of continue to focus on one stream. With an organization like Swiggy, where we have been able to create a bedrock of operations, we need to, in order to make sure that we are working very efficiently, profitably, it becomes important that we are using that bedrock across various categories. So, while there is a business which is always looking at expanding the food tech part of the organization, there is a part of the business that is constantly thinking of newer categories, right? And I will go back to what Utsav said when he was introducing me. He said that, we are now across 100 cities. trust me, every onboarding deck that we put up when we have new joiners joining in, that deck is never updated, because in a span of days, weeks, months, that number of cities changed from 100 to 200, 200 to 300. And now we are at a stage where we are in 500 cities. Now we're at a stage where, we're not just a food tech business, but we also have other offerings like Ginny or Stores, which is our grocery business. So, that's the environment that we're talking about. So it is an environment where there is always volatility, there is always uncertainty. And, that's the kind of workforce, and that's the kind of context that any HR professional in an organization like Swiggy is dealing with. At best, the way I put it is, you are always playing a balancing act, right? Because on one hand, you need a lot of bias for action, right? Because once a consumer need has been identified, if you are, and in such a competitive environment, if your go-to-market is slow, then you possibly lose the game, right? And which is exactly what we saw when pandemic hit us, right? When there was a need for groceries to be delivered, or when there was a need for a service like Ginny, which is pick up and drop, we couldn't have missed it, right? We had Ginny as a service up and running in 7 weeks. And that's the kind of bias for action that we're talking about. But at the same time, it's extremely important that you get your product market fit right. And which is where, striving for excellence as a value becomes extremely important. And by the way, these are our 2 values in the organization, where on one side, we say that we expect people to exhibit bias for action, but on the other side, we're also talking about strive for excellence. There is this constant tussle, on being able to think big, which is being able to make sense of sometimes data-related cues, sometimes very consumer-related contextual cues, dealing with ambiguity, and on the other side, being able to think very deep, which is where structured thinking comes in. So at every given point in time, you're always walking that fine line. And I think as an organization, what has really stood us in great stead is having the basics that Sandeep talked about. Absolutely right. So one of our values as an organization is consumer comes first. And I think that is something that we have been absolutely clear about. Whenever it's a question of, hey, what category do we get into? Whenever it's a question of, whether we should get into a city or not, it is all driven by that question of, are we keeping the consumer first? To an extent where, at a point in time where our CC structure in Bombay at one point in time was breaking, this was about 2-3 years back, as an organization, we took a call to shut down the city for two days. We said we're going to fix it. Yes, business is going to be lost, but we're going to fix it, and then we're going to get operational. So, that's the importance that values as a whole and consumer comes first as a value really carries for us. And I think, that is exactly what we've started emulating on the employee side as well. The way we think about our consumers is, every time we think of a category, or every time we think of a business, we are thinking about creating those moments for consumers. Can we create consumer peaks? And that's exactly how we think about employees as well, that, while we will always continue to plug those pits, but can we create those employee peaks? And that's really how we have looked at, looked at what is it that we take to the employees as HR professionals. And I'm just going to draw out a couple of, parallels for everyone to really think about here. When we think about, our overall employee value proposition as HR professionals, from a talent management standpoint, obviously we have been geared to, always think about, hey, how do we think about performance right? How do we get to the absolute right rating, for lack of a better word, for every individual? In an organization which is always struggling with time, that thought process you absolutely have to challenge, right? Because you're essentially thinking, do I get a manager to spend 1 entire month or 2 entire months when the appraisal is happening to actually spend time thinking about past performance of an individual? Or do I get the manager to spend time thinking about what is it that every individual should be doing next? Because be mindful of the fact that we're dealing with a very, very young population, right? So it's a complete generational shift. People who are at very early ages playing very big roles, managing categories, managing charters. So that was the shift that we really saw from a talent management standpoint, because it was for us a question of prioritization. Do I get them to think about past, or do I get them to think about future? Similarly, I think in a context like ours, it is extremely critical for people to continuously keep learning, because we have examples of people, who were managing a city P&L to looking at central strategy for us, and now having moved on to product management. And that's the kind of aspiration that people, within this industry really carry. So it becomes extremely important for people to constantly keep learning. Again, the same dichotomy. While people know it is important, but where is the time? Because you are constantly hustling on that quarterly plan. So it became very important for us to think of very creative ways to get people to learn, right? It was absolutely impossible to get people into a classroom. And the way we had to really think about it, how is it that we can manage learning for people in a way where you are actually getting learning in the flow of work? While a person is learning, like you go on to a Google and you look for something and you learn, can we create that ecosystem? And, we've recently worked towards creating that, and it's been a huge success. Nobody ever thought, but the moment you, and that's absolute product thinking, right? You try to create an experience for people that actually ties in with the experience that they're living today. So again, a huge shift in what traditionally I would have seen, or a lot of us would have seen, to what is actually working for this particular set of audience. When it comes to engagement, I think one of the biggest things that we realize that, unlike a lot of other industries where, cash can be the biggest leverage for you to get people to sort of stick, it's essentially for us the 3 Ps that are holding us in good stead, where people are actually coming and working for startups, forget Swiggy or any other organization, largely because of the kind of problems that they get to solve, for the kind of people that they get to work with, and the kind of prospects that you're able to create for them. So it's extremely important for us to actually focus on giving people the right kind of work to keep them anchored. I think the 2 big learnings for me, as I have sort of been with Swiggy, is, and especially in this particular industry, one is you cannot hold your purest point of view very close to heart, right? So while you may feel very strongly about it, you can have strong opinions, but they will have to be loosely held. I think that is something that I have learned over the last 1 year. Because what you would have seen working with a lot of other organizations, the context here is so different that it just doesn't work. The other very important takeaway for me has been that gone are those days where HR professionals could just know all the right frameworks, all the right models. I think the role itself is becoming so technology oriented. If you truly want to create peaks for your employees, it is, the only way to do that is via technology. So it is almost a role where you need to be able to think like a product manager. You need to be able to think like a system integration engineer. It is extremely critical. So I think those 2 worlds are very, very fast colliding. And this is something that I had seen even with Aon, where you could have earlier designed a performance management system for a client, but now until it is sitting on a system, it makes no sense. So I think that is a skill that every HR professional will have to pick up going forward. So those are largely my thoughts, Yuvraj. Any questions, I'll be happy to address.
Very, very good. Very good, Kamakshi. Thank you so much. Very well brought out. I think guys on the screen, I'm sure that you must have picked up some of the relevant points and very contextual point what Kamakshi brought out. What clearly she mentioned is that, there are organizations which will have its own needs. If you have to talk about IDBI, it can think of 5 years. Large organizations can really think in that pattern. If that is one extreme of the continuum. Second extreme of the continuum is organizations like Swiggy and many of the startups who are on a quarterly planning cycle. And the moment you change the lens which you are using to drive the organization's profitability and growth, what she also spoke about, your ways of working changes. Your every process pertaining to HR, whether it's an employee life cycle with respect to onboarding or a hiring or a talent management or engagement or a performance management, everything changes the moment you change the lens of your line of sight in terms of business. So thank you so much, Kamakshi. Very well brought out. A couple of things what I also picked up makes a lot of sense, that any organization and every organization has to have some proposition which they can really offer to people to really be a part of their core. world is very competitive. Kamakshi talked about people. Kamakshi talked about problems, what you are solving, and Kamakshi talked about prospects, what you offer to people who join the organizations. How do you really create excitement in the minds of people with the help of some of these very, very important aspects and elements of career building will define how the organization grows. And the last point very clearly, which comes out for everybody to learn, is that there's a balance which needs to be created. Every organization will have to have a balance in terms of a growth, profitability, and a scale. And growth profitability, when it is merged with the need of scaling up, then I think that poses the biggest challenge. And if that is the big challenge, I think everybody needs to really develop new skills and new ways of looking at things to help the organization. Thank you so much, Kamakshi. Very well brought out. Moving on to Megha. Megha, we spoke with Kamakshi and Sandeep regarding overall construct of VUCA. Coming to and doing a bit of change in terms of the conversation drift. Coming to COVID, we have spoken about this whole 5 months issue which we all have been struggling with. And one thing which has been going on in my mind for the last 5 months while handling many of the complex issues at the organization level and talking to people is that if you need to help people understand what would be the real new normal from the HR point of view. We currently also are moving from the standard practices. We are trying to look at how do we really do some calibrated changes, right? 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, couple of quarters down the line. What do you think would be the HR practices, organizational practices, which people have to really look at very differently and come to terms with it? Any thoughts around that? I'm sure it's in the light of COVID, which is a real example of a VUCA. Megha?
Yeah. Thank you, Yuvraj. So let me first start with a thought, which I, usually quote a lot nowadays is, a lot of time when I interact with people within organization, outside organization, and I recently, I start with a session with a poll and, most of the time people, if you talk about, and you ask a question about, when do you think the economic activity or your travel back that was normal, when do you think it will come back? And 80% of the people feel or say that, things will go back to normal in 2021 end, or it would be in 2021 in the first quarter, or it would be 2022 in the first quarter. But I think that stems around the mindset that we all carry, that hey, this pandemic is basically a pause button where we literally left things and things are going to go back to where it was. And I fundamentally challenge and I feel that this is not a pause button, it's a restart button. We all have to start seeing as, where we left is somewhere, the world had, to a point literally stopped to say, oh, whatever we were doing may not be working in the best of the ways. And we have to start seeing it as a restart. We all have to go back to a drawing board, whether it's the business, what we were doing into. There are multiple businesses like Airbnbs of the world, the Ubers of the world, where they fundamentally challenge to the existence that they operate into, to where there are some businesses who are flourishing, whether it's United Health Group, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's banking environment, which is the online payments, to multiple other places where we see they are flourishing. And there are multiple new worlds that we see parallel to it that are going to come because of what we have seen as the pandemic situation as well. Which means, we have to go back and say whatever we used to do, whether it was a business strategy, whether it's our HR strategy, whether it's our people strategy, to even saying what's our location strategy from tomorrow, has to be started from the scratch. And I think that's the first piece. Fundamentally, I challenge it with the pandemic, that we can't say that, oh, we were today offering X benefit, whether it's a gym membership, or we were providing, say for example, Sodexo as a meal passes to manage the benefits. I feel today doesn't even hold relevant or true. And I don't know tomorrow will it hold relevant in a situation to where you feel, oh, my location strategy to say, oh, we have been extremely successful in a 100% work from home environment for last 6 months. Should we be thinking about, is this the right way to go for future, to go back to a 100% work from office situation? Should we not think and challenge ourselves to say that, we have seen a success, while we're not saying that we should completely go to work from home, because because, humans do need a physical interaction in the world that we stay in, which means you start to go back to a normal situation if everything goes normal from, the medical standpoint, which means should we be thinking about, or should it be, a rotational of people, coming, a team coming together, say once in 15 days, or maybe going just 2 days to an office environment, because what you need in an office setup is a physical interaction, but rest everything is sorted. Your productivity is high. At least the ITS organization, I can very thoroughly talk about, they have been claiming that in the work from home setup, their productivity is high. Definitely there are burnouts, and I will call out that people are saying that, there is enough burnouts, there is enough screen fatigue, there is definitely, people do miss the physical interaction, and we all need to sort for that. But I do definitely feel that we need to challenge whatever we were doing as an HR fraternity and go back to the drawing board and starting from a business strategy, which means, business should reinvent, first of all, themselves. What are we currently doing? Does it even hold true from a future standpoint as a, existence from the business itself? And then what's the new, business model that we all have to do it? And that is where we need to stem about saying, what is our talent strategy? What is our location strategy? How do you want people to interact in a future setup? Which means, do you have the digital transformation in place for your organization? Because there are a lot of organizations today, even their basic of the HR practices may not be set up digitally. And I think that's the digital mindset that we all have to start, doing at a rapid pace, I would say, not even at a slow pace, but at a rapid pace, to first have your basic life cycle set up at a technology platforms. The second piece that I would say is, does your organization even equipped to manage what kind of new people management competencies that you would need if they who have to hold the entire organization in a work from home setup from a long time? Which means you need to now go back to the drawing board again to saying, what did we value as an organization from people managers today? Versus what are some of the new set of competencies that you expect from people managers from tomorrow? Which means, how do they manage conversations with people who are not so vocal over a digital setup? Do you understand how do you play fair and inclusive on a digital setup? Because what may happen when you are interacting, there are three people who are talking who are always vocal, but people who don't interact so much in a group setting may feel shy over a digital piece. So how do you be more inclusive, and do you teach those managers now, because that's where the need will be much more than what it was 6 months before? Because earlier, people will still walk up to you one-on-one, maybe they won't do a one-on-one over a digital piece. So, and I think that is a big piece that will be a biggest challenge for not just HR, but for the entire community of organization, to build that new culture of the organization. Now, which new culture will be much more digital, which would be much more changing in the next 2 years, which means the change mindset have to be embraced. So people who shy away saying, oh, I want to see change, but when you ask, do you want to change, their hands will never be up. I think that's where you'll have to really work hard to say, what's your change management strategy across the organization? What's the changing mindset in the organization? How do you embrace and make that change happen in the organization? Because I feel fundamentally for 2020 or 2021 and also, business will just figure out what's their business strategy more than anything else. And that would obviously completely change the landscape for everyone across the board. And then obviously from there stem into, what are some of the things that we all end up doing, whether it's digital transformation, the growth mindset, what is the culture today, versus what is the culture that you want to see for future, what's your location strategy, what's your talent strategy. And now think, the moment you open up 50% work from home, or a 30% work from home permanent, or 80% work from home permanent, that opens up the talent landscape for you. Today you were not hiring or going in a C-class cities. Tomorrow that opens up a channel to say, hey, I sit in Bhopal, I may be your best of the talent, but I don't want to relocate to a Mumbai or a Delhi or a Chennai or a Hyderabad. The moment you do that, you open up the complete landscape of skills that were untapped till now, which means you can get talent at a cheaper price, which means you can get better and a brighter talent, which means you don't have to really fuss about your real estate costs. And the biggest issue that you solve for, not just for organization, but all of us as a whole, is the environment as well. And I think those should be baked in your business plans and not just the HR piece, to say, what are we really, really solving for as a whole, as a community? And I feel we all own it up. It is not just on the government or the large scale organization or a non-profit organization to solve for, but I think we as an HR leaders, we as the business leaders of the organization, hold it true to solve for some of these biggest challenges.
Wow, Megha, Thank you so much. I think loved your passion, loved your passionate appeal, which also gave a bit of, sense of, Megha is worried and Megha is concerned. Megha is looking at what all things needs to change. And I think that you really, really brought out some of the points very clearly. And I do feel that, when you look at the change management models, and I don't know how many of you students would have really read Kotter's change management model, which gives a long run to the change in the organization, right? It says that you need to create a burning platform, and then you finally need to really build coalitions, and then jump on to doing the change initiatives. Look at the whole thing. Within a week's time, everything changed, and the whole theory and process and the mindset started changing. In my organization last year, Alok, you know what happened? We opened a co-working space in Noida because we realized that let's have a distributed office.
Right.
Everybody is in Gurgaon. There are concerns, travel and all that stuff in Delhi. A lot of discussions started happening around pollution. So I initiated a process and took around 60-seater in Noida and said all the guys from Eastern Delhi, Noida, Ghaziabad and all, we have a substantial number of people can come and work from here. And there were around 100 people who had signed it up that yes, they will operate from here off and on. Manager had also agreed. And when the office started working, and it was a WeWork office, we realized that there were not more than peak attendance in that office was 15 to 18 people against a seat of 70. And I, as a leader, also, I stay in Noida. One, I was anyway going through that guilt. People will say that Yuvraj stays in Noida. He has started office in Noida. So I was very sure that, it should not really give sort of a message to people around. But I realized that I also could not really operate from that place for more than a couple of days in a month. And it all came down to the thought, and what Megha was also alluding to is that there is a huge requirement of mindset change in the minds of people. Just by having offices, just by looking at talking about distributed workplace or a location strategy, I don't think that you can really implement it. I always felt that there is a cultural issue, if you have to say, that in our office, people say that if you leave at 5 o'clock, in any Indian organization, people say, are you going a half a day, right? If people take a day preceding to the weekend, people say, okay, fine. I think that, are you going for a long weekend? If people come to office well-dressed, people say, okay, had you gone for an interview? So I think that what I'm trying to really highlight is that we operate in a very unique mindset. And we also have started traveling a lot abroad, and people come back, bring practices from there and say that European countries, people don't take calls after 6 o'clock. Offices are deserted around 5:30. Weekends are for the families. I think we try to really bring two things together without we being culturally or mindset wise evolved where we should be. Even in business models wise reached where we should be, we try to pick up practices. And my biggest concern and my biggest appeal to everybody in HR fraternity and organizational leaders across every forum had been that you need to go that extra mile to build trust with an employee workforce. And as an employee, you will have to ensure that you are showing huge sense of ownership and accountability in everything what you are doing. So I think great point brought out by Megha in terms of how things should change and what will remain to be really challenged by the ecosystem once we come back to the normalcy. I'll come to Cornica. Cornica, sorry to keep you waiting, but I'm sure that toward the end, scale organizations, talking about the scale organization will be very, very relevant. You come from Cipla, Cornica, and what an organization, great set of workforce, right from knowledge workers, R&D professionals to feet on street who are battling every day in the market to ensure that supremacy of the product continues to be there. Talk to the students from the point of view that how do you identify interventions within the organization, which are how do you identify incidents and opportunities which can really be picked up to create relevant interventions to prepare workforce for the VUCA world? We say that everybody needs to prepare at every point of time. But how do you identify those opportunities? What are those signals? And how have you done some of these work, maybe in CIPLA in your earlier career? With your opening remarks, if you can throw a bit of light on this, Konika. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yuvraj. And I've been listening to the rest of the panelists also talking about a lot of different relevant pointers about how to deal with the VUCA environment till now. And as rightly mentioned by you, I've worked in 2 large Indian setups, one ICICI Bank prior to this, and then CIPLA, both big Indian MNCs, ICICI, both having their own very different characteristics, I must call that out. One very large, still agile, highly digitally savvy kind of an organization in the banking domain, very structured, hierarchical in the organization's way of operating. And then I joined CIPLA and I've been there for the last 6-7 years, where it's more an entrepreneurial culture. It was an 85-year-old organization which behaves as a startup, literally. And when I was listening to Kamakshi talking about Swiggy and how it's not about, while there are 3-year plans in place, how things also need to be agile from a quarter-to-quarter basis. So keeping that balance going has been a strong one for us as an HR team as well, and has been a personal learning from me as well, that how do you need to balance the short term with the long run to ensure that you are keeping agile as a function, as an individual as well. To answer your question very specifically, what is the process that we adopt to keep identifying the right interventions in a VUCA environment or constantly changing environment that we operate in? I think 2 things that become very crucial as capability levers for any leader, I would say, not just even the HR function predominantly. One is resilience as an individual or as a function or as an organization. And while I was dwelling, and this is a concept that I've been reading up a lot about over the last couple of years actually, and I came across this concept. There's an index called the Hardiness Index, which primarily talks about 3 C's of resilience, about how tenacious you as an individual or as an organization are. First one that it talks about is control. Whether you as an individual or as an organization are 100%, or do you feel more comfortable having 100% control over what you are doing, or are you okay with making incremental difference to the organization or to the employees? That is the first lever that it talks about. Second is challenge. And somewhere challenge ties back to growth mindset in a way. Are individuals or organizations showing growth mindset? They are picking on challenging opportunities, constantly looking at what can be made better, what are new opportunities to be tapped. That is the second C in the hardiness scale. And last but not the least, and I resonate a lot with what Mr. Sandeep was mentioning and about the values of the organization, somewhere taking from that commitment. What is my larger purpose as an organization? And thereby ensuring that while I might lose certain battles, am I winning the larger war? Am I gunning towards that constantly? I'm coming from this perspective because in a VUCA environment, we need to be very flexible, be open to trying out a lot of new things, keeping that larger perspective in mind. But sometimes they might work. There might be scenarios where things do not work as per our plan, and which is where the resilience piece becomes a core for any HR professional and any leader in general also when making decisions. So that is one of the key tenets that I would suggest that people also keep in mind while identifying certain solutions or interventions for their people. And coming to the second point, the world has shifted over the last 10 years, not just because of the COVID. For example, the COVID has changed the world in a very drastic manner, which Megha spoke very passionately about. There has been incremental changes over the last 10 years as well. 10 years is a short time, of course, even in the further decades. If I talk about, I was watching this documentary, and I'm sure a lot of you would have seen it, The Social Dilemma, which talks about how social media entered our lives 10 years back, and today we are anchored to check the notifications, and how our behaviors might have shifted in this time frame without even realizing. But what is the benefit of social media, for example, which is the networks that it creates? Today, one of the examples, prime examples, is us connecting here on this forum. But that kind of networking, how do we leverage that? And that brings me to the second point, which is, are we network leaders? When we become network leaders, what I mean is, are we agile from our mindsets? Where are we constantly being aware about what is happening? Because in a VUCA environment, awareness is a very key factor. What is the new practice that has come out? What is the shift that has happened in the industry in general? Are we keeping that on prime recall for ourselves? Second is, are we as an organization or individuals in leveraging those networks that are in place, building those actively and then leveraging them? And I'll give you an example from a short story from Colgate. There was Colgate had this problem of, they wanted the fluoride content was not, in the manufacturing process, was basically flowing not into the tubes but also onto the machinery. And there's simple problem they had to solve, that the fluoride had to go into the tube. And the whole chemical engineering team was trying to figure it out. They spent months over it and were not able to find a solution there. Then finally they opened it up on an external forum, that this is a challenge that the entire chemical engineers team is sitting and trying to solve and unable to resolve today. And within minutes of it being posted on the external forum of resolution, there was a physicist, a Canadian physicist, who emerged, and he had found a resolution to it. He said that you just need to positively charge those fluoride electrons, and they get absorbed into the tube. So there was actually a physics problem resolution to a chemical problem. And that just brings me to the whole point, that there might be a solution that is available somewhere else and where you're not really even looking. And which is where tapping into our network, and getting crowdsourcing ideas, doing hackathons, are a big way of driving. And for us as an organization, and now I'm coming specifically to CIPLA, innovation is a big thing for us, because there is a lot of production innovation that is happening at the back end, and then we have the feet on street, which has to be agile, reacting to the market on the go as well. So how do you build in these networking, which is getting the right kind of information in, and then tapping into those networks to also resolve problems in the right manner, is the second key enabler that I would want to speak about. So as organization structures, some things that we have started identifying, when you are very clear about what are those two key business levers that are going to make that longer shift for you in the right direction, keeping again the purpose at the heart of it, being our North Star. We ensure that identify those 2-3 key impact making programs that you want to run. I think in my introduction also it was mentioned that less is more. I completely believe that pick on 2 interventions, drive them to the fullest instead of doing multiple interventions to see the best impact of what we do. So we have created platforms which help internal people resolve different kinds of problems in the organizations. They are opened up, and in the last 2 years, we have managed to resolve 50 crores worth of revenue for the organization by the right levers of cost saving or revenue generation through simple programs of this sort, where crowdsourcing of ideas and solution making has come forth. We actually tried and did a structured forum of a hackathon to ensure that we can prioritize for a specific business unit offsite to identify what are going to be the key priorities and 4 key work streams that they want to identify and work towards in the right manner. So how do you provide those forums also when you identify that these are some key levers that we as an organization want to focus on? We actually, and this is where I would want to end on this point of networking, we actually also am looking at how do we structurally redefine that whole piece, where holacracy is a big thing that has been talked about as a structure. Do we have self-managed teams on ground? And we have in our green site of manufacturing actually attempted having self-managed teams, which does not need to be completely hierarchical in nature. Decision making is decentralized as long as they are tied to the larger purpose that we are anchoring as an organization. These are the 2 main things that I wanted to focus on, Yuvraj, from an HR capability perspective. One is resilience as a core, as well as the network leadership at the core of it. One other thing that I'm very passionate about, I'll just leave it at one sentence, is of course the power of digital technology and data. And I don't think we can talk enough about it. Data is the new petrol or oil field, is what we say. So how we leverage that, and that's something that we are actually developing as an organization in Cipla, was a black hole for us, and that's something we are working on. But a lot of industries, especially when I look at the social media, a lot of your tech companies, Fiserv, Swiggy, Amazon, Make My Trip, all doing very actively leveraging the technology to the fullest. So that is another area, of course, is a way ahead for us in the HR fraternity and as an organization as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Kaunika. Thanks a lot for bringing everything out. And I think that while you were talking, I was just thinking that, there's a huge amount of learning which any organization in the new age can really learn from the older organizations, and older organizations can learn from the new age organizations. I reminisce my days with Asian Paints, which was a manufacturing organization, and we used to do Kaizens there. And now when we come to new age organizations, we are more of doing hackathons, but the concept and the overall intent remain same, right? They're there in the shop floors. You think of self-managed groups. When you come to organizations which are new age organizations, you think of working in the pods and created teams which can really be given an agenda to really drive. So I think similar things with a bit of new flavor and new context is something what happens. And there's a huge amount of learning what organizations can give to each other. It's also a lesson for the students that they should really interact a lot with people who work in different organizations, and try to see when you go for the career, what can you really pick up from one organization and try to see it in the different contexts. Very, very beautifully brought out this whole concept of perseverance and resilience, your 3C formula. And that 3C formula, reminds me of something what we did 2-3 years back in Make My Trip. We merged Make My Trip and Go Ibibo and Red Bus. And it ties back to what Sandeep was saying. We realized that these values of the organization, what we keep talking about, are many a times not even remembered by people. And if they're not even remembered by people, how do you really implement it? We saw that Make My Trip had around 11 values, which were talked about. Go Ibibo had around 7 or 8 values which were being talked about. And we realized, and I did a bit of dipstick, I realized that 80% people didn't remember what those values are. 20% old stalwarts will continue to remember, right? Some people will form an acronym to really remember it. We did some exercise. And it's basically, it was an exercise to really bring things in the current context rather than really getting married to something which is not more or less relevant with respect to the times. We said that, there's a concept of values which is being values and a doing value. So you can be certain individual or a character, but that character traits, how it reflects in your action is your doing. And what should reflect in your doing should be exactly similar to what organization wants to deliver to their customers. And And what we developed is that we created a formula of being and doing values. And being values, we said that, for every Go Tripper, being values are 3 C's, that is care, creative, and curious. So we want everybody to be caring, we want everybody to be creative, we want everybody to be curious. And we said that doing values out of this would emerge as commitment to result, continuous improvement, and customer centricity. And when you go and tell people that, my organization's values commitment to results, you say, yeah, what do you mean? It's a proposition, right? You offer to people that you are committed to results. As an organization, if you have people who are caring, creative, and curious, their actions and whatever they will do will finally result into your doing values. And that is how you really link it up. So maybe creating smaller stuff in terms of what you talk about resilience, what you talked about creating networks, you talked about some of the stuff what Cipla has been doing in terms of identifying interventions. And I loved your point on, less is more, which is very, very important. Reminds me of PepsiCo, wherein we said that people are working very hard. Can we really drive an initiative which is simple? And what is a simple initiative was one simple thing. And we started calling it OST. And we said that, okay, Kamakshi, Alok, please go and figure out one simple thing you want to do, whether you want to go and play badminton, you want to go and learn music, you want to go and exercise, you want to really spend time in reading books. Please define one OST for yourself. And we started driving it as an intervention that every individual in the organization should have OST, and there should be a game plan around it. End of the year, we will evaluate how much have you really progressed. So I think beauty is to really create things simple. Beauty is to create connect between the individuals and the organizational deliverables and create an impact. I think that's very, very relevantly brought out. Coming to Alok, thanks a lot for patiently listening. Very articulate ladies and gentlemen, Sandeep till now. Alok comes from a rich background of consulting. And that's why I had kept you at the end, that you would be able to bring in a perspective of the different organizations you have worked for, and you would be able to really give some learnings from your experience to the youngsters here on the screen, and how they should prepare themselves at a personal level to really handle such VUCA environment. Over to you, Alok.
Thank you. Thanks, Yuvraj. I'm very cognizant of the time. We are almost at 11 o'clock now. So I will be very, very brief, and because otherwise the students will not get a chance possibly to ask questions. So I want to give them that opportunity to ask questions. I'll be very brief in my answer here. Just a couple of things that I would want to possibly share with the panelists and the entire the students. The current VUCA environment, and especially the COVID, has tested leadership capabilities like possibly never before. The entire paradigm of what leadership models were and how leadership needs to be there is very, very fast changing. And I'll give a couple of 2 quick research points which will possibly give a context to the students as to how they need to look about their careers and their futures, which you mentioned about as they progress to become the great leaders that they want to be in their careers. The first research point that I will show, we'll talk about is what is the quantum of change and what is the speed of change that's happening right now. So a research that we did a couple of years back, it's almost even before the COVID times, looking at the VUCA environment, we asked organizations and large global organizations as to, in next 2 years, how many strategic change, big changes are you likely to do in your organization? And the surprising result was that more than 70% of the organizations said that they are likely to do at least 2 major strategic changes within a period of 2 years. That's the context of how fast organizations are changing, and hence, because the organizations and the organizational strategy is changing, the people's expectation and the expectations from the leaders are changing. So that's on one side. The other side of this is the other major research which happened as to how do people's career and the skills that they are going to require in the future, how long would it take for that to change? And that research showed out another very interesting aspect to say that majority of the geographies are likely to have a situation wherein any individual who wants to be in the corporate environment and wants to succeed will need to go at least 2 major skill enhancements, within a period of next 3 years. So wherein earlier people used to think that, hey, I've done my MBA, I've done this, I've acquired this kind of functional skill, I've acquired that skill, and now this is going to last me for the next 5 or 7 or 10 years. Not going to happen. So for the young students who are listening to this, now the paradigm is that within the next 3 years, you would possibly be required to acquire at least 2 new skills to add up to your leadership career. So that's how fast things are changing. Now, in terms of just the experience and how to go about looking at it so that as young professionals, you are ahead of the curve of what is going to come out and what requirements will help you to succeed in your careers. I'm speaking directly to all the students who are listening to it. There is a very simple analysis that I would recommend you to do constantly, possibly every year, every 2 years that you are in. One is what I will call it as an outside-in analysis, and the other is the inside-out analysis of yourself. So look at the functions or the industry that you are operating in. Look at the functional domain, the industry that you are operating in. Then see what is the track that industry or that function is going to require over the next maybe 3 to 5 years. What direction it is going in, and what changes are happening in that domain or in that industry and function. Then come down a little specific to the organization that you are working in to say, hey, how is my organization going to cope in this? And hence, what kind of leadership skills, what kind of functional and domain specific skills I will be needing to work on that. And then look at your own personal self as to what is it that I have today, which is going to contribute and align to and make me ready to deliver in that kind of an environment today. So it's important for everybody today to do that analysis even more frequently than what used to happen. And for all the young professionals who are going to get into their careers now, do that outside-in analysis. The second thing that I would also suggest is, and this is also from personal experience, is to look at an inside-out analysis. Say, start from your own self to see who am I core as an individual, what is my personality, what are my beliefs and attitude, and then see how does it align to the company that I'm working in, and thereby then to the industry, and hence what kind of skills that I will excel at in my future. So what is going to be critical over the next, as everybody grows through their professional careers, and we've got great examples of people coming from very different backgrounds, both Sandeep, you and Yuvraj coming from army to a corporate environment, and seeing that change which you're able to do to actually have a very strong and great career. I personally started my career in the first 8 years in product and brand management in pharmaceuticals and consumer chemicals, and then came into consulting domain. So what's going to happen is for all the students is that mindset that, hey, I have acquired this certain set of skills and they're going to last me over a period of time has to change very, very fast. Continuously keep doing that analysis. There are going to be certain competencies, like a lot of my co-panelists have said, which are going to become extremely relevant in the coming years. Things like, obviously, when you're talking about your digital capabilities, as HR leaders, Kamakshi mentioned this, Megha mentioned that digital leadership is going to be critical for all HR leaders. So build your capabilities of digital capabilities, and not just the simple digital fluency, but take it to a level wherein you are actually able to utilize big data in HR analytics and utilizing that in the HR decision making. It's going to be extremely important for HR leaders. The other thing that I always say, obviously the colleagues mentioned about resilience, Karnika mentioned about resilience. The one thing that I would want to tell you a little bit from personal experience, and I'm sure others might possibly agree with this, is your ability to take risks. Take risks. It's good to take risks. Look at, based on the analysis that I talked about, if you think that the industry is going to change like this, your function and the requirements will be different, by all means take risks. Don't get restricted and in a comfort zone that, hey, I know this best, so let me just be in the space. If you feel that a line role might be good for you, try that out. If you think that you want to get a consulting flavor, get that out. So try and take those risks, calculated risks, experiment. Be bold in the way that you look at your career and take your decisions on that. But do that early, recognize it. If it means failure for a short time, that's absolutely okay. But rather than being in a stagnant position for a long period of time, it's better to be able to take those bold risks, fail early, take the next risk, and you would be surprised that sometimes those risks will give you really disproportionately great returns. So do that, and that's the message from my side, and all the very best to your careers and as professionals. I'll leave that Sandeep. It's already 11:05, so I'll leave it at that and ask people to possibly for questions.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Alok. I think very well brought out. So I think that all the participants, you started this conversation. We have around 5-7 minutes we'll spend on question answer. We started with imperatives around VUCA, what Sandeep talked about, and then we went on to talking about the context of the organizations with the help of Kamakshi's narration. We moved to mindset and the culture, what Megha spoke about, moved to Karnika talking about interventions, what organizations can really do. And then we finally summing it up with Alok giving tips to all of you that how can you really prepare yourself by that, the help of identifying 2 or 3 skills which are important for you, and also somewhere aligning your organization, your personal values, core values with the organization values. So thank you so much. I think it had been a great to talk to each one of you. And I must appreciate all the panel members. I've been to many panels, but I think that you guys are very, very sharp, very, very detailed, and very, very relevant in terms of your conversations, in terms of the points you brought out. And I really thoroughly enjoyed, moderating this session. With this, I hand it over to Utkarsh and the team, organizing team. If there are any questions, we have 5-7 minutes left. What I was told, we can spill over by around 10 minutes or so. Let's have a few questions which are relevant for everybody to know. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. So we'll quickly go on to our HR team. And Karnika ma'am, we'll ask you the first question and then we'll let you leave if that's okay.
That is perfectly fine then, because I was just going to call out that I unfortunately have a hard stop at 11:10. So I will have to.
I'll make that quick, ma'am.
Thank you.
Shubham, do we have any questions for Karnika ma'am?
Not any particular one for Karnika myself.
Not any particular.
I'm sure everyone will. Yes, exactly. We are all many senior HR folks, much more experienced, also on the panel who will be able to help along. So thank you, everybody. I'll take leave from this panel and we'll stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thanks for inviting me here. Bye.
Shubham, if we can go to the next, whatever questions that we have.
So, we'll be having our first question from Rakshit Kutecha. Rakshit, go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everyone. Ma'am, my question is to Ms. Kamakshi Gupta. And a lot was spoken about the core values. So basically, ma'am, you spoke of holding the core values loosely in order to be flexible and be adaptable. So for me, my core values is drawing a line wherever required. So in this fast-paced world, if we go about blurring the line, how do we ensure that we don't erase it altogether while adapting?
Great. So Rakshit, let me clarify, right? Not even for a second am I saying that we hold our core values loosely. I said we need to hold our opinions loosely. We need to have strong opinions, but they need to be loosely held in an environment which is ever changing, in an environment where individuals, organizations sometimes have to act at the drop of a hat. Things can change so quickly. So not for a second am I saying that hold your core values loosely. I think those are the only things that remain constant, right? If I have to talk about Swiggy or even the previous organizations that I've worked with, in an ever-changing environment where a lot of things keep changing, those are the only questions that you can, that's the only bedrock that you can go back to and get your questions answered. Absolutely not. And which is where I gave the example that consumer comes first, for example, is a value for us. And at a time like the pandemic, where we could, as an organization, we could have pivoted multiple ways, right? When we were thinking about, hey, what categories do we get into? Let me take an example, right? We were getting into the grocery business. And there were two models as an organization that we, a more inventory-led model where we hold inventory. We had, as an organization, decided that we will not go down the route of a marketplace model. Reason being that there is very little determinism, very little predictability, and the consumer experience gets marred, right? Which is where we decided to go down the route of an inventory-led model. But when the pandemic happened, of course, at that point in time, you would have seen a lot of campaigns, a lot of talk about, Swiggy being the hunger saviors. At that point in time, it was addressing the need of the consumer, whose safety was paramount. We already had a set model of marketplace, which we had tried, and we felt that, inventory-led would be a better model for us to get into. We decided to ramp that up, right? Because the only question at that point in time was, how is it that we can best meet the need of our consumers, even if it is going back to the previous model that we will keep for a certain amount of time and then move to a more inventory-led model. So it is the core values that absolutely keep you grounded. Not for a second can you blur the line on those. So that's a clarification as well as an example that, those are the things that absolutely have to remain constant.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for that answer, ma'am. Next, we have Paras Nandia with our question. Paras, you can go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My question is for Mr. Sandeep Batra, sir. Sir, as we all know that employee experience is a major factor which adds to the brand image of an organization. During these times of pandemic, what were the major challenges you faced in keeping the employee engaged, and how did you strategize it?
Okay, so let's come back to the fundamentals. Ultimately, there are two experiences. One, every business has to manage in the VUCA world. One is really about the external customer, which enables us to survive in the business, and the other is our internal customers, which is employees, who enable us to serve the customers who are external to us. Now, again, let us look at what is really the core for employees. If you look at the current context when VUCA really happens, it's very, very important to see what employee is, if you really make a design thinking or a persona and see what employee is going through. Employees are generally anxious about 3-4 things, okay, when this VUCA happens. One is about jobs. Secondly is about income streams. Third is about the hierarchy. Fourth is about decision making, and fifth is about structure of work. Now, I think it's a very important thing for any organization to make sure that we are communicating right, we are communicating transparent. And let's face the facts that on all these 5 parameters, sometimes organizations cannot give stability to the employees because it's really, really about crisis management, right? So rather than it's like, even if employee doesn't like something, it's not about you are going personalizing to make dislikes or dislike for employees. It's like about you're flying an aircraft, right? And whether a passenger likes turbulence or not, pilot takes you turbulence and says tie up your seatbelts, and it's like that. You have to go through that whole turbulence. It's the key really is about employees. What they like is about the transparency, and in that whole context, the fairness, and make sure that you stick to the core. And when I talk about the core, there's 5 things. That how do you make sure that the clarity on jobs in the crisis is remaining very, very clear. It's about how do you make sure that you protect the basic take home for employees. We have seen a lot of crises in this last 4 or 5 months, how organizations have said, we want to cut salaries, we want to give furloughs and all of that. And employees have said, okay, now we have no choice but to stick to companies. But if your values are strong, you will say, okay, we want to protect the basics so the employees' whole basic life cycle at home really keeps running. Third, about protect the hierarchies. Fourth, really about, how do you give that empowerment when your structures are really getting diluted? People are working from home, give empowerment to take decisions and make sure the structure of work doesn't change. As far as you protect these 5 core stuff for the employees, I think we have won a big battle for. I hope we've answered your question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that insight. Yes.
Next one. Do we have any other question? Last question.
Yes. Last question will be from Rohan Agarwal. Rohan, you can go ahead.
Good morning to everyone present here. I have a question for Ms. Megha Gupta. The long working hours, colleagues being laid off, and pay cuts have taken a toll on the mental health of the employees. So how can an organization address those issues?
Yeah. Thank you, Rohan. So I think a very, very valid point, Rohan. I do know that, a lot of organizations today, face a challenge to their fundamental existence to obviously, taking some tough decisions of obviously, either doing a salary cut or, literally doing a layoff. And even the organizations which are not doing, like, I can talk about, our own organization at Pfizer. We haven't done a single pay cut or a single layoff. In fact, we have done our annual increase in the month of April. We have done, huge amount of director promotions recently, and we have been talking about the mid-year promotions as well as the off cycles or merit increases as well. Now, having said that, the reality on the ground is, with people working out of home, not having enough household support, the number of calls and the meetings dramatically increasing because of the fact we have to ensure that people are now much more connected than they were ever before. It does create a lot of mental, physical, and the emotional pressure on the workforce, which means employees are calling out that they are feeling immense amount of burnout with the number of hours that they have put in. The amount of meetings have suddenly increased. In fact, if I talk about my own self, last week itself, my head was aching really badly continuously for 2 days, which was absolutely not normal. Then I absolutely took 1 day off, and I realized it's mostly happening because my eyes are getting too stressed because of too much of the screen fatigue time that I was really spending into, because we also all are onto our mobiles, then our Netflix, and a couple of those aspects as well. Now, a couple of things that organizations, and I think organizations are realizing by now that there is a lot of pressure on people being there are not enough furniture for people. Like, give you a small example, right? People who would have who would have been staying in PGs. There are no more PGs available in a Delhi NCR environment or any other locations today. There are not enough space for people to stay because everybody have suddenly started work from home. Women workforce are struggling a lot to maintain their child because there are classes online. They also have to manage the household responsibilities, and as well as the work responsibilities have dramatically increased for people. Now, I feel that organizations have started to realize this. Maybe, some have started way beyond this journey. Some of them have now started to realize it. Now, a couple of things that I know in the industry, that have been, a huge, being called out. Number one, biggest thing that I feel that organizations are doing is, either some organization already have it or now been launching is the employee assistance program, which is obviously to ensure that, people get that emotional, mental, well-being support, and they can literally counsel and get coached through an external party. So that I definitely feel is a big one that organizations are really thinking for. The second piece is obviously reinventing the entire employee engagement piece, which is right from doing how you used to do the fun activities at the office place, which is now no more happening through a physical environment, but people are being very, very creative. I was talking to one of the external vendor partners, and they're literally doing radio shows, say, they're thinking about couple of like, we are thinking about a virtual family day. We used to do a year-end big bag celebration where we used to do for all 7,000 people and their family to a physical environment piece. Now we're thinking about doing a virtual family day, which includes not just involve our associate, but also celebrate with their families, doing couple of physical mental sessions with their families, thanking them, doing our annual rewards and recognition through a virtual mode. So all of those definitely have been spoken about. The third piece, I think, which is the most important piece in my mind, is going to take, surpass of all of this, what is happening in the industry is, calling out that, hey, we're doing a lot, which means can we go back to business and saying, why don't we prioritize what are we doing as an organization? What should we continue to do and what should we, maybe pause for a while? Because I feel, the same example of, work is dramatically increasing, with the work pressure that's going on, there is a multi-level of data that's been asked by associate, which were never asked before in that scenario. Measuring productivity has become an extremely important thing, which means, people been asked for, okay, what have you been doing? What have been those conversations? And hence, I think the biggest question, has been started to come is let's prioritize around our book of works or review of what is very, very important to deliver to our clients. What can some of the things can be taken a pause for a while till the time we really figure out that is it really even important and critical for us to continue? And it is not just for HR activities, but I would say for the entire organization, right from saying what clients are important, what clients are, maybe you keep it just as a continuation mode, but not do a transformation journey for them. And, what clients are, we don't even know what's the future around that. And do you really want to spend the entire team working on them, or do you have a handful of people working on them? Which means prioritizing work for everyone in the organization and then looking past every initiative that you run in the organization that can be work at a big level to support people to say, hey, we really value you and we really value the work you do, which means we will prioritize our work, we will prioritize our initiatives, which obviously give that relaxation to people in terms of, getting that time back and maintaining the work-life balance. Recently, we even heard Accenture coming up with saying no calls after 5:30 p.m. So I think those will be a couple of small, initiatives that will also be a very good initiatives across the board to say, hey, we really care for you. And, we absolutely are there to understand that you are feeling burnouts. Google recently launched, 3-day weekend, which means, getting an additional day off. We are giving, pandemic leaves, which means, any unforced situations, but it doesn't arise in a normal year, take a 15-day, additional off for this particular year. And those are, couple of things where organizations are started to think differently, do differently, because we all understand that this is absolutely not a normal year.
Thanks a lot, Megha. Thank you so much. With this, I think that we close the discussion and overall, summit at least on this topic. Thanks a lot, Utsav and the whole IMI team. Everybody looks very, very smart. Thanks a lot to all the panel members. All the best to all of you. Utsav, is there anything else or we can sign off? How do you want to do it?
So we are proceeding with the concluding remarks. We'll be sending you a pop-up right now so that you can join the breakout room. Meanwhile, we'll send the closing remarks to the students.
Done. Please send me the pop-up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
It was such an insightful session. Sandeep sir said that all organizations have their own survival system and methods of handling VUCA. We totally agree that as an HR, it is important to collaborate with each employee so that they understand values work on organization collective intelligence. Kamakshi ma'am brought in the perspective of consumer and employees, wherein ma'am said that in the VUCA times, values are the most important and consumer is of most value to us, and we have to constantly think big and focus on developing employees. We agree that today technology plays an important role in HR field, and we have to wear many hats and embed a learning culture in the organization. Megha ma'am all left us with a new perspective. We should think about this as a pandemic, as a restart solution instead of a pause button. It is the time to go back to the drawing board and think about what traditional practices are still relevant today.
Yuvraj sir emphasized that currently within a week's time, everything changes. No set theory can help solve the real problems. The action has to be unique and solution has to be new. There is a huge requirement for a mindset change. As employers, we need to go extra mile and build trust with employees. And as employees, we need to show huge amount of accountability in terms of what we do. Kornika ma'am talked about in VUCA times, organizations should look at 3 C's of resilience: control, challenge, and commitment. Ma'am focused on a mantra that less is more. We definitely agree with ma'am that we should focus on what can be made better and what opportunities to tap, with focusing on limited interventions and leveraging the resources that we have and can bring maximum impact.
Alok sir said that in changing times, we need to upskill ourselves in the domain and focus on the speed of change that we want. We agree, sir, that the only thing that is constant is change. And with strategies changing, employees and employers' expectations are also changing. Post the session, we all feel much more aware and equipped to bring about the necessary development and innovative practices to sustain in today's VUCA world.
On behalf of everyone virtually present here, I express my sincere gratitude to the guest speakers, Mr. Sandeep Batra, Ms. Kamakshi Gupta, Ms. Kornika Gange, Mr. Alok Gupta, and Ms. Megha Gupta for taking out time from their busy schedules and sharing their thought-provoking insights with all of us. Post this session, we relatively feel more aware and equipped to understand and subsequently bring about innovative practices. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank Mr. Yuvraj Srivastava for consenting to be the moderator for the session and conducting the session in a highly coordinated manner. We would like to thank our sponsors for helping us in conducting the Conventus 20. RPSG as Associate Partner, MBA Trek as Career and Skill Development Partner, IOCL as Co-Sponsor, DUB and Independent Student Newspaper as Digital Media Partner, Health and Happiness Private Limited as E-Commerce Partner, Cengage as Education Partner, Davanka as Fashion Partner, Brewhouse as Iced Tea Partner, Multi-Mind Creations as Innovation Partner, Punjab National Bank as Loan Partner, DU Express as Media Partner, Human Capital as Media Partner, Mint Hindustan Times as News Subscription Partner, Radio City as Radio Partner, College Dunya as Social Media Partner, Unity as Student Community Partner, Innovators Bay Technologies Private Limited as Technology Partner, Campus Times Pune as Youth Partner, FinLadder, Tribe Concept, Umbrella Genics, Dr. Vedyas, Conveyor Sportswear, Superior Wire Co., Unschool, EduPeer, Your Space, Sage Publishing, and SG.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude the HR Summit. We are certain that this session has been very enlightening for each one of us present here. I would like to take this opportunity to commend all the guests, participants, speakers, professors, sponsors, students, and the staff of IMI for making this session an unparalleled success, as well as the media persons for the online coverage of the event. Thank you all. Participants may now leave the meeting. Thank you.